welcome to session 7 of module 4. In the last session, that is in session 6, we understood what is software evolution. So software evolution is a process improvising on the quality of the software when the software is being used at the client side. So as explained in previous sessions, once the software product is complete, so the software product will be deployed on the client side and the client will start using it. Okay. So when the client starts using the software, so we enter into the evolution phase. Okay. So during evolution, so we understood the requirements of the clients may change, because of which new features, new functions may need to be added into the software. Changes may also occur because of the flaws or bugs that may be discovered when the software is being used at the client side. Okay. Also, policies of the government, internal policies of the company may result in new changes, new requirements. Okay. So the bottom line is, the software that is delivered to the client is not static, it is not fixed. Okay. It evolves, it improves because of new requirements, because of changing situations. So what was that? So it was discussed in detail in session 6. Okay. So in today's session, that is in session 7, so these are the topics that will be discussed. So we will once again try to explore software evolution with program evolution dynamics. Okay, we'll try to understand what is program evolution dynamics. Also, we will understand what are the laws defined by layman for software evolution. Okay. So we will also cover a few more aspects of software evolution, which is software maintenance. It's 3 types. Also, we will try to understand the difference between software evolution versus maintenance. Okay. And finally, we will conclude with a discussion where we will try to analyze adding a new functionality to the software. Okay. So which is the most appropriate time? Is it before the software is delivered to the client or after the software is delivered to the client? We will try to analyze considering cost as a matrix. Okay. So these are the topics that will be discussed in today's session, that is in session 7. To start with, okay. So first we will try to understand what is program evolution dynamics in the context of software evolution. Okay. So the very first topic is program evolution dynamics. Okay. So program evolution dynamics deals with the changes in the system. Okay. How a typical software changes when it is being used at the client side. Okay. A detailed study of it, a detailed analysis of it, and a description of it will be given in program evolution dynamics. So as already explained, software is not fixed or it is not static. It keeps on changing, not only during design and development, also after the software is given to the client and the client is using the software. So in that situation, in that scenario also, we can expect changes in the software. Okay. So a study of it, study of the changing dynamics of the software, okay, when it is being used at the client side. So we call it as program evolution dynamics. Okay. So few laws were proposed, and among the laws that were proposed, one of the laws gained worldwide acceptance, worldwide popularity. Okay. And that is what we will study under program evolution dynamics. Okay. So the law that got global acceptance, okay, is Layman's law. So Layman's law is talking about software evolution, okay, how a typical software evolves when it is being used on the client side. It also deals with the evolution dynamics, okay, how typically a software changes. Okay. So all these aspects have been addressed by Layman in the form of laws. Okay. So based on his experience, he has formulated few laws, okay, of how a software will typically evolve. Okay. So we have 7 laws. Okay. So listed starting from 1 to 7. Okay. So now we will take up the first law. It's Lehman with Belady. Okay, so Belady, they were the ones who proposed these laws, and these laws are applicable for large complex softwares. Okay, it's not for small systems or small softwares. Large complex software involving many teams in a software company. Okay, so these laws are applicable in that scenario. Okay, so we will try to take up and understand the very first law proposed by Lehman. Okay, so the first law. So what does the very first law propose? Okay, so this law gives us directions about software evolution or maintenance, and it gives us a very significant statement stating that change is inevitable. Okay, you cannot avoid changes after the software is delivered and it is being used by the client. Okay, so that itself has become a law. So what we understood as software evolution, okay, so that itself has become the very first law proposed by Lehman. So that is, change is inevitable. Okay, changes will occur because of changes in the requirements of the client, changes in the environment, and you cannot avoid it. You should change the system, you should modify the system, you should upgrade the system. Okay, it's part of the process. Okay, so that is the first law. Okay, so change, it's an inevitable process. So change is inevitable. Okay, I'll just briefly return the key idea with respect to the first law. We have it in the form of a statement. Okay, the second law. What does the second law state? Now, second law is talking about the structure of the system being degraded. Okay, as you keep on changing the software. Okay, so we had taken up this discussion in one of our previous sessions. We understood changes will have an impact on the design of the software, structure of the software. The reason being, see, please try to understand, a software that was initially designed was for a specific requirement. Okay, based on a specific set of requirements, we had come out with a design, and that design was deployed, and we had an initial version of the software. Okay, so please note that design, the design that we have as part of the software is for that requirement, that initial requirement. Okay, now in evolution, in maintenance, the requirements are changing. Okay, based on the new requirement, we are trying to add functionalities to the existing system, which may not be properly accommodated by the previous design that was part of the existing software. Okay, so this can lead to inconsistency, okay, ambiguities, or new errors or flaws rising up in the system when it is being used under normal usage scenario. Okay, so that is what is being addressed by the second law. Okay, so once again, second law states that if you are into the evolution process, if the software starts evolving, okay, with changing requirements, the structure of the system is degraded. Okay, structure of the software degrades. Now, is there a solution for this? Because just now we made a point, evolution, it cannot be avoided, it's part of the system, it's part of the process. That was the first law. Okay, when you cannot avoid it, when you cannot neglect it. And in the second law, we are claiming that it is degrading our system. Now, is there any solution for this? Okay. Yes, we have a solution, that is preventive maintenance. We have something called as a preventive maintenance. So what is preventive maintenance? Okay, as the name itself is suggesting, we ensure the design of the system does not degrade or does not get corrupted because of the new changes that are being introduced. Okay, so that is preventive maintenance. So second law is stating that yes, the structure of the software degrades, the quality of the software may degrade because of the evolution process, but still we will try to minimize the degradation, minimize the impact through what we call as preventive maintenance. Okay, so that was second law of Lehman. Okay. So now we will take up the third law proposed by Lehman for software evolution. So the third law is once again related to the software structure being degraded. Okay. Yes, we already made a point that software degrades. Okay. Now, what is the proposal in third law? See, the third law proposes that yes, you do the required changes, but let the changes be small. Let the changes be incremental. Okay. Do not plan for a very large change. Do not plan for a big change in the existing software. Reason being, so that is what is being addressed in third law. So if you go for a major change, okay, if you go for a major change or a big change in the existing software, the probability of new faults occurring in the software is very high. Okay, so major changes to the existing software may result in a high probability of new faults. So please try to understand the essence of third law. Third law is giving a provision to make the changes. Yes, fine, go with the change, do the required changes, but ensure that the changes you are doing, okay, is not done as one big change, as one major change. What is the reason? Reason being, if you are doing major changes to the existing software, new errors, new faults may arise, okay, during the normal usage of the software. Okay. So that was the third law, and we have one more flip side of the coin here. If not major change, what happens if you do a minor change? Okay. What if you are going with a minor change, small changes to the software? So the opposite is true here, that is the probability of faults reduces. Okay, so we will have a lower probability of faults occurring in the software. So this was the third law proposed by Lehman. Okay, now is there any factor that will influence software evolution? Yes, definitely. One of the major factor is how exactly the organization makes a decision with respect to change and change management. Okay, so that is also a contributing factor. Okay. So this was the third law proposed by Lehman for software evolution. Okay. So now we will go with the fourth law. Now we will take up the fourth law. So what is being addressed in fourth law by Lehman for software evolution? Okay. So fourth law is talking about resources and staffing. Okay. To be more specific, now we are aware software design, development, even evolution and maintenance will involve software teams. So multiple teams will be there. Depending on the complexity of the software, the team sizes will vary. Okay. For example, if it is a very large complex software project, okay, we have teams spanning across 100. Okay, we may have hundreds of small teams working towards the realization of the software. Okay. If it is a small team, small set of teams, yeah, it's a small software. Now, what is being proposed in fourth law? See, this is very interesting. See, fourth law states that for a large complex software, if you have larger teams, they will be unproductive. Okay, so that is a proposal by Lehman at this point. Okay, so just for the reason of software being large and complex, if you try to involve large number of teams, its consequences, the productivity goes down. Okay, now you may be wondering what is the reason. So if we have a large set of teams, we have more resources and actually we can improve the productivity. So your thoughts may be in those lines, but this is the exact opposite of it. Okay, so Lehman has also given a justification for this. The justification being communication overhead. Okay, so if you have hundreds of teams, it was observed that much of the time is consumed in meetings and discussions, okay, which were not so productive. So this is the proposal by Lehman in this junction in fourth law. He states that large teams, large software teams, okay, may result in communication overhead. They keep on talking, they keep on discussing, and the outcome is less. Okay, so instead, let us have small teams, small software teams. Okay, so that is one aspect of Lehman's fourth law. Okay, so second aspect with respect to fourth law is changing the staff. Okay, now as we are aware, when a new project is acquired by a software company, so required resources in the form of staff, in the form of hardware or software will be allocated, and once the project is complete and the product is delivered to the client, the staff may be put into a different project. For example, staff Anil, Sunil, who are working in project A. Okay, so once the project is complete, so they may be put into project B. Okay, so now what will be the consequence of it? Okay, see, this will have an impact during evolution. So in my example, you understood Anil and Sunil were involved in the design and development of a software. They have moved into a different project. Now what if this project, the previous project, okay, requires some upgradation, some changes, some flaws have occurred. Okay, so the design and development team that were previously part of this project, now they are into a different project. So obviously, so now we cannot take their respective support. Okay, so that will result in consequences which we can easily guess. So that is what is being addressed in the second aspect of fourth law. That is, if you change the staff and resources, okay, that are allocated to a specific project after the project is complete and delivered to the client, so this will have a consequence. This will have an impact during software evolution, during maintenance. Okay, so it's a very strong message here. Lehman is stating that please ensure people who are part of design and development should be part of the system during evolution and maintenance. Okay, so that is a very strong message from fourth law, Lehman's fourth law. Okay, so now we will try to understand the next one, that is the fifth law. So Lehman's fifth law. Okay, so fifth law is talking about increment size. This was already addressed in the previous third one. Okay, so we understood, do not make large changes to the software, existing software. Let the changes be small. Okay, that has been put in different terms here. It is being called as increments. Okay, the size of change should be small, or to put it in other words, do the changes in small increments. Okay, let the change be small. Okay, now what is the reason? Already we have understood, if it is a small change, okay, so the number of flaws, new flaws that may be introduced is very less. Large significant change, what is the consequence? Already we have seen. Okay, so go with small increments, release it to the client. Okay, Now you may ask a question, okay, only we have developed only a small increment. What about the other increments? Give it in the next release, that's it. Okay. So whatever new changes, new functionalities the client is expecting during evolution, provide it, release it in small increments. Okay, so that it does not arise or it does not result in new faults. Okay. So the essence here is go with small increments and release each and every small increments in new releases. Okay. So meaning here is go with incremental approach. Okay. Step by step approach. So this was fifth law proposed by Lehman for software evolution. Okay. So now we will try to understand the sixth law. So sixth law proposed by Lehman. Okay. So what does the sixth law state? Okay. So now sixth and seventh are talking about the same terms. So it has been combined here. So we will try to merge sixth and seventh law, and we will try to understand what exactly it is. Okay. So sixth and seventh law is addressing the customer satisfaction. Okay. See, if there are continuous changes, upgrades to the software, customer will feel happy. Will feel happy about the software. Will feel happy using the software, experiencing the software. And if the software does not change for a period of time, definitely you will feel unhappy. The reason is, as already discussed in our previous sessions, changes are inevitable. Changes are required because of not only internal factors, even many external factors are there, like changes in the technology, okay, changes in the context, changes in the laws, regulations of the company and even government. See, many influencers are there which will result in a change, and if that change is not reflected in the software, so obviously the customers, okay, who are using the software, they will not be happy. Okay. So that is what is being stated in sixth and seventh law. Okay. So customer satisfaction through continuous changes or upgrades to the software. Okay. So these were the different laws proposed by Lehman based on his experience of involving himself in software evolution. Okay. So to summarize, so Lehman proposed few ideas, okay, few philosophies with respect to software evolution based on his experience, and that has been framed as laws. To be more specific, so 7 laws have been framed here, starting from the very first law, which states that change is inevitable. You cannot avoid changes to the software after the software is being deployed and used by the client. Okay, so software should change, software should upgrade based on the changing needs, based on the changing scenarios. Okay, based on the changing technology, it should change. Okay. So we saw a few more aspects of Lehman's law in the form of Lehman's second, third, so up to the last one, that is the 7th law. Okay. So we understood what is software evolution, what is program evolution dynamics, and also we understood the 7 laws proposed by Lehman and Beledi. Okay. So the next topic is software maintenance. So we'll try to understand what is the difference between evolution and maintenance, and the different types of software maintenance. So the next topic of discussion, software maintenance. Up to this point of time, we were using the term evolution. immediately we are experiencing a new term, maintenance. Now, is it same? Is it different? Okay. So both carry a similar meaning, but there is a small difference. Okay. So evolution, we understood what is evolution. Continuous improvements to the existing software that is being used on the client side. So that is evolution. Okay. Now, if there is any issue, there is any new requirement, we already understood that new requirement will be informed to the software company, and the company will be responsible for adding a new feature or function to the software, okay, which becomes evolution. If there is a flaw, once again the company is responsible for fixing the flaw by providing the required patches. Okay, so the bottom line here is software company is responsible for the evolution process. Okay, the clients cannot do it. Now, in evolution, we also understood the design and development team, okay, who was part of the software development. Okay, if they are doing the required changes, then it becomes evolution. Okay, so the team who was responsible for the design and development of the software, so they have took up the responsibility of evolving the software, okay, improving the software. So in that case, we call it as software evolution. Okay. Now, what if a completely different team is assigned for maintenance? For evolving the software. Okay. As I discussed in the previous scenario, when I took up layman's laws, in one of the laws we understood, do not try to change the teams. Okay. Let us try to retain the same team who were part of design and development. Let that team take up the responsibility of evolution. See, that was a proposal by layman. Okay, but we cannot always expect this to happen. The reason was also discussed. Okay, so we understood project team or team members may be put into a different project. Okay, because companies will not be working on one single project. Okay, so there will be many projects so that are being designed and developed by a software company at any point of time. Okay, it's very rare that they are into one single project. Okay, so the point here is layman is suggesting to retain the same team that were part of the design and development to evolution. Okay, and already I made it as a point that it may not be possible in all cases. Okay, during which we may need to have a different team for maintenance, meaning to say that maybe some team A was responsible for design and development of a specific software, for example a college management software. Okay, and that team or team members are not available during evolution, so obviously the company does not have any choice, so they need to form a new team. We will call it as team B. So now it's the responsibility of team B to go with the evolution process of that college management software. Okay, and in that case, in that scenario, we call it as software maintenance. Okay, so the evolution process taken up by a different team. Okay, in this example it was a team. It can also be like a completely different company. Okay, this scenario is also possible. Okay, for example, the college management software was developed by a company, for example Infosys, and it was given to the college, but maybe the college has chosen a different company for maintenance, for evolution. Okay, so that can happen in real time, in real world. Okay, so that is considered as software maintenance, where the team or the company, okay, is different. Okay, the one who has designed and developed is not taking up the responsibility of maintenance. Okay, it is being done by a different team or a different company. Okay, so that is software maintenance, and that is how it differs from software evolution. Now, what type of changes can occur in the software? Okay, during maintenance. Maybe evolution or maintenance, already we made it a point, changes are inevitable. Now what type of changes may happen in the software? Okay, so changes may be small simple changes, like a small flaw has occurred in the software. For example, there is a small text box, we are trying to enter some data and maybe the text box is not accepting any data from the user. A small simple flaw. Okay, a small coding, it is a coding error, may be corrected. We call it as a small simple change. Okay, maybe the changes may be more extensive. Okay, changes may be extensive, where the complete design may need to be changed. Okay, for example, we have designed a web page to collect patient information and store it in the database. Okay, the complete web page is not responding. The different elements in the web page, it is not responding, and the GUI in the web page is not as per the requirement of the client. In that case, you need to completely change the design of the web page with all the elements in the web page. Okay, that will be an extensive change. Okay. Third possibility that may result in a change is accommodating new requirements. Okay, new requirements of the client. This new requirement may be the result of many possibilities that was already discussed. Okay, so new requirements need new functionality to be part of the software, and that is also a change in the software. Okay. So we understood what are the possible reasons, and also what are the types of changes that may need to be done to a software during software maintenance. Okay. Next, we will try to understand. We just now understood what is software maintenance. We will try to understand the types of changes. So the types of changes during software maintenance. So types of changes. So we can identify three major types of changes during software maintenance. What are the three types? Okay. So first, as already informed, fault repair. We took up this discussion in the previous instance. We understood small changes to the software. Okay, I have a submit button in my web page. I'm clicking on it and it is not responding. It's a small flaw. Okay, so minor tweak in the code, okay, can ensure this flaw is fixed. Okay, so that is fault repair. We even have one more terminology for it. It is even called as corrective maintenance. So corrective maintenance. We are trying to correct, we are trying to fix the parts of the code which is resulting in some issue, some flaw. Okay. So it can even be a design error, okay, but as already discussed, design error will result in major repairs, major changes, okay, and it can be costly in terms of resources and even time. Okay. The second type of change, okay, is environmental adaptation. So environmental adaptation. So it is also called as adaptive maintenance. So adaptive maintenance. What exactly is this? What is done during environmental adaptation? Okay. Now assume a scenario where a bank which was using a banking software has decided to upgrade their systems. Okay. They are planning to bring in new servers, new technologies, new networking mechanisms. Okay. So obviously the banking software that was deployed should upgrade, it should change. Okay. So that is environmental adaptation. So we have bought new systems to our working environment. So obviously the existing software should be upgraded. What if we are changing the operating system, we are upgrading the operating system on which the banking software is working. Okay. So changes to the external context, changes to the external resources, changes to the environment may trigger the need for change to the existing software, which we call as environmental adaptation or adaptive maintenance. Try to understand this term, adaptive. We are trying to ensure our existing software adapts to the changes in the environment and works in a normal way. Okay. So this was the second one, the environmental adaptation. The third one, the third type of adaptation, the third type of change that can happen during software maintenance. So we call it as functionality addition. So functionality addition, or it is called as perfective maintenance. Perfective maintenance. What exactly is this? So name itself is giving some clue, some indicators here. Functionality. Okay. As already discussed, client may come out with a completely new requirement for the existing software. Okay. So we understood that new requirement will result in a completely new functionality that should be integrated to the existing software. Okay. So in response to the changing needs of the organization, business, technology, okay, stakeholders, we may need to add new requirements to the software. Okay, and that is perfective maintenance. We are trying to make the software perfect, okay, in the present context. Okay, so that is functionality addition. So these are the three types of changes that can happen during software maintenance. So we understood changes may be because of small issues at the coding level, at the design level, which we call it as a fault repair. We also understood changes can be because of external factors like changes in the operating system, changes in the working methods, procedures, changes to the systems, okay, changes to dependent softwares. So that will trigger the need for changing the existing software, which we call as environmental adaptation. Okay. So we also understood change may result in a completely new feature or function that needs to be added to the software, which we call as functionality addition. Okay. So these are the three types of changes. So now we understood new functionality should be added to the software. Okay, so what are the possibilities when you can add a new functionality to a software? Okay, two possibilities are there. One is when you are designing and developing the software. Okay, so during design and development, okay, so you can add new features and functions. You can add new functions to the software. Yes, you can do it. Now the product is complete. Now the software is complete. You have released the software to the client. The client has taken delivery of it. He is using it. So we understood, we have entered into the evolution phase or maintenance phase. Okay. Also, now we are into the maintenance. We also understood during maintenance also we can add new functions. It is not only during design and development. During maintenance also we can add new functions. Okay, so we can add new functions during development. We can add new functions during maintenance. Which one is more appropriate? Which one is more cost effective? Which one is recommended? So that is a topic of discussion under development versus maintenance. Okay. Which is the best place for adding new functions? Okay. So the answer to this question is the best place for adding new function is during design, during development. Okay. That because we understood after the software is complete, it's given to the client and client has started using the software, making changes, okay, adding new functions at that point can degrade the software. Okay. So the answer to this question was design and development. So try to add all the required functions during design and development. Okay, and in order to achieve this, you should be clear with the requirements of the client, and also you should predict what are the changes that may occur, maybe 2 years down the line, 5 years, 10 years down the line, what changes may occur. So you should do a prediction of it, and for that prediction you should accommodate, or you should come out with a design which can accommodate the changes at that point of time. Okay, so that is the best way of coming out with a design. Okay, so when you are designing a software, okay, come out with a design in such a way that it accommodates maintenance, okay, it accommodates evolution, that is changes at a later point of time. The design should not be very tight, it should not be cohesive in such a way that any small tweaks, any small changes will have a significant impact on the overall design. It should not happen. Okay. So that is the message from this part of the topic. So during design itself, we should ensure we have sufficient flexibility, sufficient room for changing the software, for maintaining the software at a later point of time. Okay. Because if we ensure this, the consequences, the cost of software maintenance will reduce. Okay. Now we will try to understand the maintenance effort distribution in terms of cost. Just now we made a point, cost, okay, cost of maintenance. Okay. We also understood the types of maintenance. So now we will try to understand, what is the cost involved for different types of maintenance. Okay. So it is under maintenance effort distribution. Maintenance effort distribution. Okay. So we'll try to have a pie chart here where we will try to graphically depict, okay, what are the typical costs that will be incurred for the different types of changes that may occur during software maintenance. Just now we understood the three types of changes. One is adding functions. Okay. So I'll call it as A. A is adding new functions to the software, and you can see it is occupying significant portion of maintenance. Okay. Approximately it can be up to 65%. So the major part in maintenance is adding new functions to the software. Okay. So that will be a major change here. Okay. And the remaining can be, I'll call it as B and C. B is talking about faults, okay, which can be approximately 17%, And we also saw what is C. C is environmental adaptation. Okay. So environment adaptation accommodates the remaining part. Okay. So remaining part of the percentage will be accommodated by environmental adaptation. Okay. So this is the maintenance effort distribution. Okay. And what is the message from this graphical illustration? What we can understand? Okay. The message is very strong and it's very clear. During maintenance, adding new requirements, new functionality to the software will be one of the major changes that happens during software maintenance. Okay. So during software maintenance, adding new functionality will consume much of your time and cost. Okay. Now if that is the case, we should ensure we do not miss any of the client requirements, because if we miss out on a client requirement, we complete the software product, give it to the client, and our client is indicating that this requirement is not there. So doing the required changes, what is its consequence already we have seen. Also, okay, client has given all the requirements, fine, but also we should predict what are the changes that can occur maybe after 2 years, after 5 years, what type of changes may occur. So do a prediction of it, and based on that prediction, okay, make room in the design, provide flexibility in the design so that it can be extended, expanded with new changes. Okay. So this can ensure the cost and efforts that are involved for adding new functions, okay, is reduced. Okay. So we understood adding new functions for the new requirements. So it is consuming much of the efforts in terms of cost, time and resources. We can optimize it. We can make things better here. How? Ensure that all the client requirements are part of the system, okay, before the product is delivered to the client. Also ensure that design itself is flexible to accommodate the changes, and if that is the case, we can reduce this part. Okay. In turn, it will benefit both the client and the software company. Okay. So in today's session, we understood software evolution in terms of program evolution dynamics. Okay. So we understood evolution is a process, okay, and it is inevitable. Okay. We also understood Lehman's law of software evolution. So based on his experience of involving himself with during the evolution process in different software projects, Lehman has come out with 7 laws. So we understood all the 7 laws, and each law is giving some strong indicators so that we can make the evolution process better, okay, with less usage of resources. We also understood what is software maintenance and how it is different from software evolution. Okay. We understood adding new functions will be a major part in evolution and maintenance. Okay, fixing on the flaws or adapting to new environment, okay, it's a trivial issue, but adding new functions will consume much of the efforts. Okay. Now the big question is, which is the most appropriate point to add new functions? Is it during development or during maintenance? So we explored the answer for this question, and we understood during development it is better, but still during maintenance it is inevitable, as we understood as per Lehman's law. But the best thing here is the design itself should be in such a way that it is accommodative to the new changes. Okay. So with this, we will conclude today's session, that is session 7. Okay. So in the next session, we will take up the cost related aspects with much more detailing, and we will try to understand how we can optimize on the cost, how we can improvise on the cost of the overall software design, development and maintenance. Okay, so we'll try to explore those aspects of software revolution in session 8. So thank you.